Welcome back to Takacs McGinnis Elder Care Law Hour. I am Barbara McGinnis. In today's episode, we're talking about resident rights.
Right, and I'm Tim Takacs, and in this segment we are speaking with Jake Rightmyer. Is that right, Jake?
That's right.
You're the Executive Director at Clarendale at Indian Lake, which is in Hendersonville. It's a fairly new facility. Independent living, assisted living, and memory care, is that right?
That's correct.
Great. So welcome to Takacs McGinnis Elder Care Law Hour.
Thank you.
So tell us a little bit about the differences among independent, assisted living, and memory care.
Sure. So independent living, as the name suggests, is primarily active senior adults who are ready to take a step from home ownership and join a community where they can enjoy experiences that don't require them to do things like home maintenance. Some take advantage of laundry services, transportation. Usually it's equipped with a robust activity schedule to keep them active and busy as well. And also food and beverage options, whether it be meals, all 3 meals a day, or they could take advantage of some sort of meal delivery system or some kind of programming. So that's independent living. Now, those that need a little bit more assistance with daily activities or daily living activities such as showering, medication reminders, or assistance with taking medications. Also, if they need help with their diet, whether it be the physical actual eating or things of that nature, now assisted living may be more appropriate for them. Also, that falls under a licensure with the state health department of each state.
Independent living is not?
Independent living is primarily not, no.
Okay.
And then memory care, much like assisted living, comes with those assistants with daily living, but is generally structured with a special program or a special care situation for those dealing with dementia who had a diagnosis of, whether it be frontal lobe, Lewy body, or probably the most common is Alzheimer's disease. Yeah. Those usually have specific caretakers that are trained with dementia care, and also a specific program that will enable them to keep focusing on what they have left rather than what they've lost.
Right.
So that's memory care.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Are resident rights different in those different settings?
So no, and your previous guest touched on it beautifully, is that those rights don't go away when you move into a community such as ours. Yeah. In independent living, it's more obvious. You're independent, you are, it's basically your home. We're there to serve you. You have all the rights that you would have in your own home. Assisted living really doesn't change, although it's governed. So it's on black and white paper. It's given to us. We have to share that news with them and also to our employees. That comes from the 1987 nursing home reform law that was given to each state. And she read them off and touches on what we have to provide as rights to residents, whether it be the use of a telephone, which, believe it or not, that may have not been the case before 1987, which is hard to believe. Yeah. So those rights don't necessarily change, and the same with memory care, and that's harder for people to understand sometimes, because a lot of times you're dealing with a power of attorney or someone that's taking the responsibility of that resident, but that resident still has those same rights.
And I used to work in my background was actually in long-term care, and it's not just residents' rights, but it's residents' rights and responsibilities.
Absolutely.
Right? So it's the consumer resident has responsibilities as well to be.
They do. So there's a few things that we like to touch on when a resident is moving our community. One of those is that it is a community. They have to behave appropriately, not police like a country club or anything like that, but if they become a danger to themselves or to other people, right, then yes, they have a responsibility to be in accordance with those policies.
That's right.
Yeah, when I think about that now, I'm thinking about, like, when I was in college, I lived in a dorm.
Yeah.
And you can't just play music all day. Yeah. I mean, there was quiet hours and whatever. So.
Right. Yeah, we tend to joke around with our residents that are moving in and say, this is your home, but if you go running around the halls without any clothes on, we may have a problem.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, you can't do that anymore, not like you did at home.
Right.
Right.
Your naked room is inside your apartment, right?
So we have residents of memory care. Obviously, they have more impairments. So obviously, the rights aren't necessarily, the rights are the same, but are they how do you address their rights?
So it's a complex situation sometimes dealing with dementia. So we look at it like this. It takes a village, first of all. We have what we call our care team, which is not just us as the employees or the management team of a community. That's also their doctor, that's their family, their power of attorney, whoever is involved with them in any way, shape, or form. And it takes a lot of communication between each member of that team to come up with to come up with successful opportunities to take care of those challenges. Earlier, I believe you were speaking about someone taking morning showers, and it may not be just it may not be a morning person.
Right.
So I think it's our responsibility as caregivers to look at the environment, look at that experience that's going on, and say what can we change around this person without manipulating the situation. What can we do to maybe have a successful outcome? Right. Maybe it's that we acknowledge this person's not a morning person, and we start challenging our staff to do those showers in the evening. That's an easy fix for us. Or maybe it's that that we can change the environment through just making them have a better day, whether it's if they refuse a medication or something like that. Maybe it's that we change the outcome by changing the environment around them.
So what if the resident was a smoker? Do they have the right to smoke?
It's a great question. The short answer is yes. They have a right to smoke. They can partake in alcohol and tobacco products if it's as long as they're of legal age. Obviously, they're going to be in our communities usually. Now, that being said, communities can also have policies against it. So, for instance, our community is a smoke-free campus. So we have either no smoking or designated areas, and we would ask that those residents take advantage of those designated areas. It's also a little tricky when they have guests and family members that visit that do smoke or use tobacco products, and we have to make sure that they understand those.
Yeah. My guess is probably every facility now has similar policies.
Pretty much.
I mean, smoking is not like it used to be.
It's not. It's changed a lot in the 15 years that I've been in this business. It's changed dramatically.
Well, what about sex? As in sexual intercourse or relationships that that residents form?
That's a great question, and it comes up probably more often than people think. The resident rights is first and foremost. It is just that they have the right to maintain a relationship with anyone they like to. That's difficult when you're dealing with family members who aren't necessarily for that relationship or have a problem with it, or they could be, we've even had married couples come in and the husband or wife ends up in a relationship outside of their marriage, and that becomes a very difficult situation. So resident rights trumps all. First. Now again, going back to that care team of that family member, the doctors, our staff, in situations, we all work together to find solutions that may benefit everybody.
I mean, these situations are not as black and white as we're making it sound, because people are unique and everything influences, like what degree to memory impairment or cognitive impairment is going to make it more or less problematic.
Are these consenting relationships? I guess is essentially what it amounts to.
It does, yes. As long as if both members of the relationship are consenting, there's not much we can do.
Well, and then something that may be more frequent problems, the right to refuse treatment or medications,
Yes, and I touched on that a little bit just a minute ago. They do have the right to refuse treatment. They do have the right to refuse medication and services, and that becomes tricky as well. So again, we go back to that care team. I keep going back to it and trying to find solutions to either change the environment, again, not to manipulate the person, that would be against their right, but to find solutions that may change their mind appropriately.
And sometimes, though, what really does happen, maybe not in assisted living, maybe it does, but the refusal of medications or treatment to the point that that person cannot be cared for in that setting any longer.
Correct.
Is really the danger in that, I guess, right?
That is the danger, is that they may put themselves in a position that causes danger to themselves, and then they would be faced with a concern of our staff not being able to care for them and our community not being able to provide assistance.
So Jake, we've got 30 seconds left. So are there any misconceptions about the rights of residents that that we haven't touched on that you'd like to clarify?
You touched on it, but I'd love to repeat that you don't lose any of your rights when you move into a community such as ours. You know, people always think of the old folks' home and that they become prisoners, and that's just not the case.
We do have your contact information we're going to put up.
Okay. Thank you.
And they're at Clarendale at Indian Lake, beautiful new facility in Hendersonville. Thank you, Jake, for being here. Up next, we're going to have someone else talk about resident rights in skilled nursing facilities, so stay tuned.